Hi, everyone. We are back at HR office hours after a little bit of a hiatus because if you know, you know, fourth quarter can be brutal. And now we're in the season of where is my W-2? But that's neither here nor there. Today, I'm super excited to have Ben Cruz with us. He is, I'm going to say early-ish career professional chemical engineer from Northwest Georgia area. And I'm saying early-ish career and not early career because he actually has several years of experience already, which of course he's going to cover with us. And I love to have this type of guest on here to discuss, hey, what is it like to be a Zoomer in the workplace and discuss all of those maybe misconceptions that some of us have with folks who have only been working several years or are kind of newer to the workplace and the assumptions sometimes we make. But hey, Ben, right, you're not going to be talking for everyone in your Gen Z generation, right?
Think that'd be nearly impossible.
That's right. So welcome. So, how's it been going for you?
Go well, go well.
Well, I'm glad that you're here. Hey, I said that your earliest career, so let's start there. Tell us a little bit about your work trajectory and kind of what got you to where you are today in your career.
Sure thing. Uh, engineer, going to school, um, had a couple internships, some related to software in my earlier years in school, and then I decided to do something more along the lines of my degree. I did a co-op at a salt mine with an international company in Louisiana, in reliability, maintainability realm. Learned a lot. Realized that there's a lot on the job that you have to learn that you may or may not get the opportunity to learn when you're in schooling, and that's just part of it. There, I actually the company that I did the co-op with at the salt mine, I got a chance to work with them coming out of college. Um, Ended up being a manufacturing engineer for a corn oil production department at the site, which was a really really good experience. Um, Learning how to work with people, understanding that I'm not going to know everything, and that there are individuals who 10, 15 years in that type of role that don't have a degree that know a lot more than you do. I think that was the biggest thing, and being humble enough to ask for their feedback and make sure they're involved, and really be honest about the fact that, hey, I don't know this, can you help me? I think that was kind of the biggest thing I learned when I was there. Wanted to get closer to home, so with the same company, I, and really the same role, manufacturing engineer, I moved back to the Georgia area for a specialty chemical manufacturing facility that makes epoxy resins and surfactants, adhesives, stuff like that.
Well, that sounds exciting now. So you mentioned you were in Louisiana,
Yep.
and what part of Louisiana? I'm always kind of curious. Geographically, Louisiana is kind of a big place.
Yeah. So it was about, I'd say, an hour south of Lafayette. So about like 2.5 hours west of New Orleans, Avery Island, Louisiana, kind of that area.
Okay, and then from there you went, I don't think you said where you went to the corn.
Yeah, yeah, it was in Iowa.
Okay, so that's a different type of place. What was the difference in culture and place and geography and people?
Where the plant was located, it's a very small community. And then I lived in an area where it was slightly more populated. It was different in the sense of being closer to home. I know more people. I have friends and family here that I didn't have when I was up there. And I did not do the best job of integrating myself in the community there, right? There's only so many times you can go to the pickup basketball court where there's nobody there and then be like, why am I not meeting people? You know. So I think that was the biggest thing. The One of the main reasons I moved back is that sense of community that I wasn't able to get a good grasp of when I was in Iowa.
So how long were you in Louisiana and how long were you in Iowa?
Well, I was in Louisiana for 8 months for a co-op, and then I was in Iowa for about, I'd say 2 years. Yeah, 2 years.
And so in total, how long have you been in an engineering role?
So I've been in my current role for coming across 3 years. So
Okay,
since school, I've been doing manufacturing engineering for about 5.5 years.
5.5 years. That's nothing to sneeze at. I've got some more work related questions, but those are pretty diverse geographical areas. And I think some core memories are built around snacks and foods. So, for all the three areas, what were your favorite snacks? So, like Louisiana, Iowa, and
So
now Northwest Georgia.
So Louisiana, I got the opportunity to work a lot of weekends when I was on a co-op, kind of being the company contact for a group of contractors who were doing some sandblasting on the mine shaft there. And I got the opportunity to have a lot of lunches with some of the employees there. And my favorite food when I was in Louisiana was boudin. Yeah, boudin is delicious. That would have to be my Louisiana thing. When I was in Iowa, there was a bakery in the town I lived in, Pella, Iowa. Tulip Festival, you know. I guess that's what it might be known for, probably. Um, there was a bakery called Jarsma Bakery, and they
Okay.
had some delicious cookies, donuts. If I had to choose, I'd have to probably go with their donuts, Jarsma Bakery. It's so good. I would have to go with them. If you're ever in that area, yeah, stop by Jarsma Bakery. They have some really good desserts.
So here's the recommendations for the snacks. What about Northwest Georgia, where you are now?
Northwest Georgia, I'm gonna say something a little controversial. Um, in that I like a place that some people don't like at all. Tiki Kebab Express. It's like a Indian Greek fusion of food. Okay, they have a chicken tikka box, which is delicious, delicious. The seasonings and everything, so good, so good. Some people don't like it. I like it a lot. Yeah, I have to go with that as my go-to.
Well, I appreciate the answers. I like to ask that question because food obviously connects us as humans, but other things that connect us is how we support each other. So I'm curious when you started your experiences at work, like when you went to the co op, what was your expectation how you would be supported versus how it started and how it ended?
So when I got to the co-op, there is a period where you're trying to get to know how you work with your coworkers, your boss, and they're trying to figure out what your relative strengths and weaknesses are, right? My first couple weeks there, I was trying to understand what my projects were going to be, what they felt comfortable assigning to me, and really what I ended up having to do is I ended up having to really like identify a potential, like one of the first projects I worked on was organizing storeroom for parts. And I asked for it. I was trying to display to the team that, hey, I'm willing to get my hands dirty, and also show the type of work and prep that I do in defining what the change is going to look like, how my thought process goes. So I cleaned up the work area. I created a little representation of how the cleaned up work area was going to look in SketchUp, which they really liked, showing my proficiency with like tools and stuff. And that was the first small project I worked on during my first couple weeks. And when I actually did that, my boss and the team there were like, okay, he's not afraid to get his hands dirty. He's not afraid to put work in. And I got a lot more projects assigned to me from that point. Did a lot of work inside the mine. Um, they ended up assigning me like a regional project that was going on around all the salt mines.
Was that the reception you anticipated, or was there initial pushback?
I think the reception I got at the beginning is something I feel like I've gone in every role that I've been in, which is you're the new guy, especially when you don't have as much experience as some of the other guys. They don't necessarily know what your strengths and weaknesses are, what they can trust you with, and you have to build that trust in a lot of instances before you get the opportunity, at least in my experience, to work on some of the more complex, some of the funner stuff. And it's that initial trust building that I think going into it, I wasn't as aware that I'd have to build. But in each role I've been in, it's kind of been the same, um, where you have to build that
I-
trust before you start working, before you get the opportunity to start working on a lot of projects.
Now, you mentioned something earlier that you, and these are my words, not exactly what you said, but what I got from it was that you learned a lot from folks who had been in their roles 10, 15 years and didn't have college degrees.
Yeah.
Did you come into it thinking differently about maybe the training and education you had had so far, what you were bringing into it because of that versus other roles?
Yeah. I think in Iowa, it happened pretty quick where you either recognize that your degree isn't everything or you start having projects fail and then you're going to have to recognize it eventually. There are operators who, like at the Iowa facility, who had been there for like 30 years. Right? They can resolve an issue in the plant in minutes, right? Where it may take you doing analysis, looking through data, a couple hours to try to get your mind around it, especially at the beginning. And being humble enough to ask the people who have been there, who have seen a lot, I'm having this issue. Do you have any insights? That's just going to lead to you being more likelihood that you're going to be successful than not. I had also operators, thankfully, I had operators in my roles that weren't afraid to tell me, hey, your degree isn't going to be everything. You need to be willing to reach out. That is some of the constructive criticism that I got when I first took on my one of my main roles when I was in Iowa. That in the moment it was like, man, what is this guy saying? Like, I haven't even done anything. But looking back at it and seeing how sometimes other engineers would operate in that type of environment, I could understand why they felt the need to tell me that.
Yeah. So I it's not a secret probably that there's been so much conversation about the value or devalue of college degrees the last couple of years because education has gotten so expensive and sometimes out of reach for a lot of folks.
Yeah.
As someone who has a STEM degree, so maybe not completely applicable to you, but what do you say to someone now? Hey, I don't even know if I want to go to college. Am I going to get value out of this or not? What would be your advice? How do you evaluate the value of college?
Yeah, I think if you can go to a school, it doesn't need to be like one of the big schools, and your desired career path requires a degree and it's something you're passionate in, and you can go where you're not gonna kill yourself financially, right? Like you don't need to go to an Ivy League, you don't need to go to some of these big schools, get as many scholarships as you can, go to a smaller community college if you have to. Because I mean, in reality, nobody, at least in the jobs I've been, nobody's been like, oh, what college did you go to? We got to make sure you gone to the right college. Nobody does that. People care about what you're actually able to do and what you're actually willing to do as well. I would say if you can go where you don't have to take that financial blow and it's required in order for the job path you want to go on, maybe it's worth it for you. But, is that really worth it if you're not going to be using your degree coming out but you still have the baggage of that degree coming out as well? It's tough for the like computer science majors who 4 years ago started, right? Maybe before AI has had this big boom, and now they're coming into a workplace where a lot of these entry level jobs companies are trying to automate away. I think it's really tough for those individuals. What I will also say though is like the trades are making a comeback too. I've seen a lot of electricians, pipe fitters, welders, uh, in my industry who have had the opportunity to um, really, I mean, I don't know how else to say this, but uh, make a lot of money without,
Hey, we're here to make the money.
yeah,
I work for money too.
yeah, without having that financial baggage, I think that's a path that a lot more people my age and younger are looking at seriously because you can make a good wage without having that financial baggage of student loans. Yeah.
Do you think most of your peers, the folks who you see around you, your age or younger, have kind of the same mentality, or are trying to accomplish the same thing as far as, just trying to get ahead in the same ways, but maybe just different paths? Do folks have misconceptions about whether or not they're hardworking or not for some unknown reason?
Yeah.
And do you know why that might be, or speculate why
Yeah.
that might be?
Yeah. I've definitely seen a mix of both. I think individuals around my age, some of them put a greater emphasis on making sure that they have a healthier work life balance, that they don't burn themselves out, that they're not working 60-hour weeks, weeks after week after week. I know some who are very disciplined on, hey, I'm a salaried employee, I'm getting paid to work 7 to 4 or 8 to 4, 9 to 5, 7 to 3, right? And they stick by that. And that allows them to have more opportunities outside of the workplace to spend time with family, spend time with loved ones, spend time with friends. I do think there is a perception around kids my age that, and I mean, there's some truth to it where my level of productivity that I'm bringing isn't necessarily always going to be compensated, right? If I work 20 hours more in a week, I'm not going to get, especially if you're salary, I'm not going to get paid for that 20 hours. That's going to go to the corporation. I'm kind of one of the oddballs in that I have worked the longer weeks. I have worked on weekends. I've had good bosses, especially recently, that have been like, hey, since you work Saturday, Sunday, you need to take Monday off. That does come up in performance reviews on, you're a team player or whatever. But I also don't necessarily always have had the best work life balance, you know? So I can't really fault people in my generation who have that approach. Um, as long as they're getting their work done, they're getting what they have to do done. I've had situations where I've had to backfill for positions where there've been gaps, and that's where some of those 60 hours have come in. And a conversation can be had on like, is that up to the corporation to fill in that job gap? I know a lot of times it's tough to say it, especially in time sensitive deals, like, hey, you've got to step up, fill in this gap for a little while they try to find somebody else to fill that role that's left vacant. But I mean, are certain people wrong if they say, hey, I'm not going to work on that? That's somebody else's job entirely that I'm not getting paid for? Yes, that's a tough one.
Yeah, I love that you have leaders who have been supportive to say, that's enough. You need to go home. You need to take time off. I think that's really super important. So it sounds like you've had some leaders who have really supported that. Have you had experiences where that has not been the case? Especially maybe earlier as you came along in your trajectory where maybe you did not feel as supported, maybe not in the amount of hours that you worked, but in other areas. And maybe not by leaders.
I've been in situations where I filled the role, right? And in order to get one of my key tasks completed, there are other aspects to the work that I had to learn that I necessarily wasn't aware of, that out of the gate that I'd have to learn. In one of my earlier roles, um, we actually did not have capital engineering resources to execute some of these changes that I was defining. But you still had the deadline, right? So it was kind of a okay, I'm going to learn how to do this workflow because I got to get this done. It's really not something specifically stated within my job description that I have to do, but in reality, it is one of those deals. And I remember like learning what is the best process on interacting with contractors, on getting quotes, handling invoices, tracking budgets, managing permitting, managing lockout tagouts. And a lot of those initially, especially early on, I did not do the best job on. Um, but you learn from your mistakes and you get better. And looking back at it now, I actually really appreciate those experiences because even in my current role, there are times where, hey, you got to take on a project to try to help the team get something executed. And the skill set that I learned earlier in my career has paid off now. And not being afraid to fail safely, being afraid to fail safely, right? Uh, I will say when you're in those type positions where you may not necessarily have that support, people generally, people generally are more understanding on why something may not have worked out.
That's
So
a great point. And the reason I'm asking this is because this has zero to do with you being a Zoomer.
yeah,
Would you agree with that?
yeah. I mean, I'm not the only one who's been, I imagine, who's been in that type of situation. Yes.
Have you seen this type of scenario be applicable to your peers across whatever generation
Oh yeah. Oh
in
yeah.
your workforce?
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. It's more common than not. Yeah. Yeah. I've seen it happen to not just Zoomers. It's happened to the other generations as well.
So why does it seem that at least in the memes in media, or it's kind of fun to poke fun at your generation for their work ethic or their knowledge or how they come into the workforce?
I was watching a TV show recently. I can't remember which one it was, but there was this it was based in like the 60s. And this guy was making a quote on, probably people in the Bible were talking about how the next generation was going to be the end of the world. I feel like that's every generation. They look back at the young guns that are coming up and they say, "Oh man, these guys with their telephone, always on the phone talking to people." And then it was the smartphone, and then now it's the TikToks and all this stuff. And it's like, we're coming up. We're just the next generation. I know you guys have had it hard, and we've had our own struggles too. Um, the lazy allegations, the lazy allegations. Okay, I don't know how I feel about the lazy allegations. We all go to work, we put in our time, we get paid. Okay, again, do some in the Gen Z feel like, hey, I want a healthier work-life balance. I don't want to burn myself out, like maybe some of the other generations have done in the past? I don't fault them for that. I don't fault them for that.
I agree with that. So let's be honest. How are you feeling about Gen Alpha coming up because they're coming into the workplace now
The Gen
or
Alphas,
about to?
yeah, I like to think that I'm still like, I still know what's going on with the youth. I'm not, my niece may tell me I'm unk status and that things I say are cringe, but I'm gonna have to disagree, okay? I know what's going on, all right? I have had the opportunity to work with some, more in the contractor roles, some younger individuals. I think there is a sense of on how do I get ahead? You know, what does that look like in the roles that I'm in? And the question of if I work harder, am I actually going to merit certain things? Not only merit them, but are they actually going to happen to me, right? Like this whole idea if I work hard, is that going to lead to success and results? I think it doesn't hurt to work hard, to give yourself the opportunity once it arises to succeed, to move on, to get a better, different role. But without the work part, you're limiting your opportunity, right? But in their defense, just working hard isn't going to cut it. There are times when, hey, it's between two people and you may not get the role and you may have been a better fit. And that's just how the cookie crumbled. But you're going to limit your opportunities if you're not willing to put in work in the first place. That's what I would tell the Gen Alpha coming up. Working hard isn't a guarantee of success, but it's definitely going to limit your chances of being successful if you don't work hard.
Yeah, that's fair. So, and this is going to be obviously anecdotal, only true for your own situation. To what extent do you notice any difference in the way people share knowledge in the different age groups, generations, or time and roles?
In all the roles I've been in, I have not hesitated to share information, share knowledge. Some people would say I overshare information. We've had interns. I've had coworkers where it's like I'll find something that's I find is valuable and I immediately share it with people. You know, like you can here's the link. This is what I found, and I feel like that builds trust with the people I work with. That I want them to be successful. My perspective on it is if they're successful, then I mean it's kind of selfish, but if they're successful, that means that they're going to execute on their workflows, and I'm not going to have to follow up or execute them for them. That's my perspective on it. Is it's going to make the team operate better. People are going to be able to do the roles more efficiently, and there won't be as much rework. So I'm not going to say all. I'm not going to say all because I've had some of the older generation who have been very similar, not afraid to share information, stuff like that. I have worked with individuals who are less inclined to share information because of a fear that if I share this info, this guy's gonna replace me, or this information is like one of the things that makes my role safe. I feel like I'll get that type of vibe where I'll ask, "Hey, can you send me that file?" And it'll be like, "No," from people who have honestly had been through multiple layoffs. Like, there's a reason why some of
Mm.
the older generation feels this way is because they've been in situations where there's been concerns about their job, where they feel either consciously or subconsciously that I've got to have something, either expertise, knowledge, information that I own outside of the company, where they're gonna think twice about firing me or replacing me. And I mean it's unfortunate, but it it's our workplace, so yeah,
No, that's true. I had a funny situation at work this week where I loved it because I was with someone earliest career and they were super sweet. I was at my second office. I won't say the name because I don't have permission, but shout out to them for being so kind. They were doing an errand and they were going to stop to get coffee. They remembered my favorite type of coffee, which was super sweet. And they were like, "Hey, do you want me to pick you up one?" And I was like, "Sure. Can I Venmo you?" And they're like, "Sure, but do you do Apple Pay?" And I was like, "Well, I bet I could, but I've never done it before." And yes, the look on your face was probably the look on their face. And they were like, "Okay, well, that's okay. I can show you how." And it was like no hesitation, no judgment. Like, just yeah, let's see your phone, put in my phone number, do the plus sign, the whole thing. They just walked me through it. No judgment, nothing. We got it done. And it was so great because that is how knowledge sharing should be. It was just a transaction, informational, no judgment. They got the coffee. I was able to share the money. I learned something new and I was so excited for the rest of the day because I was like, "Oh my gosh, now I know how to use Apple Pay." And you know what? I'm not even embarrassed about sharing it here because why?
yeah,
I learned a new skill that is going to serve me in the future. Whereas maybe 20 years ago, I would have been like, "Oh my gosh, this thing happened to me where I was in a workplace situation and I did not know how to do Apple Pay. How embarrassing. I should have known." And this young worker, they one up me in their knowledge. And it shouldn't be like that. Like, why can't we just share? We don't know everything in the world, and the world is better when we share the little things, the big things, whatever they are.
yep,
So yeah. So now I know Apple Pay, and I haven't used it again,
yeah.
but I was excited. We were talking about different situations and some of the challenges too. Sometimes with the challenges comes disappointment. And you've shared a lot of successes, but has there been any recent with your growth and trajectory, any disappointments that you didn't see coming?
Yeah, I think recently there was one that comes to mind. So I've been in engineering for 5 years, and around this time last year, actually, I was like, hey, what would it take for me to get my professional engineering license? I've met the time and the workforce requirement. I had passed my fundamentals of engineering exam in 2019, actually. Um, so I was like, what do I got to do? I just got to pass the PE. I checked the Georgia law, and per the rules, I met all the requirements. I did my research, and it was my understanding that I met all the qualifications to be able to, once I passed the PE exam, to be able to obtain licensure. So I studied for a couple months. I passed the professional chemical engineering exam, and
Congrats.
yeah, thank you, thank you. And I submitted my application through the NCCS, the national board website. I got all my application stuff there, my references. In fact, I passed both exams. NCCS reviewed my work experience. Two PEs reviewed it, said that it met the complexity of engineering experience to be able to
A
get me
lot of steps.
licensure. Yep. Submitted it to the Georgia board, and they reject me. So
Oh no.
yeah, yeah. So come to find out that what they rejected me on was that I did not have the 4 years of experience under a licensed PE, and that although that's not called out in the law, that's still a requirement they have, right? So,
Oh.
yep, yep. So it was kind of a bummer in the sense that when I was looking at the law, I thought that if I met certain steps, that I'd merit licensure, and come to find out that I don't. So, kind of that illusion of meritocracy, within how the rules were formatted is something that did bother me for a while. Um, Looking at it now, I'm not going to be able to get licensure while in Georgia until I get 4 years of experience under PEs at some point. In my industry, it's very unlikely you to get that unless you're in consulting, which means if I want to get my PE at some point, I got to become a consultant. It's not meant for people in my type of roles where you're not going to have that opportunity to have a supervisor who is a PE, essentially. So, um,
Well, that seems unfortunate.
yeah, was unfortunate how the rule is laid out versus how it's implemented. That to me is the most unfortunate thing about it, especially since right after passing the PE, I thought all I got to do is my application, and that wasn't the case.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I'm sorry.
yeah.
Just for a lighthearted moment, do you have any funny safety related moments that you could share with us? I don't know if you know this about me, but way back, I used to be a safety manager. And unfortunately, when things landed on my desk, they were typically not funny.
Yeah.
But I just wondered, do you have any humorous safety moments?
I have one safety adjacent moment. So, we were in a big outage at the corn oil facility in Iowa, and I'm a shorter dude. What can I say? Okay. So there's this big piece of equipment. It's got like a bunch of trays in it that can get like dirtied up, fouled up. Um, so during these big outages, certain individuals who can fit between these trays, the trays aren't that big, they're like 3 feet high. The gap is like 3 feet. Certain individuals can fit in there with a shovel and shovel the grime to the bottom deck where people can then remove it, right? I was chosen. I was chosen. So I got in the suit. It's the middle of the summer. It's hot. I'm shoveling all this grime and stuff out for what feels like hours. It was hours. What am I talking about? It feels like hours. We get out. We go back to the office for lunch. I'm still in my suit. I sit in one of the chairs. I get up and my sweat imprint is in the chair.
Oh,
Yeah. My boss sees it and he's like, "You need to go home." Yeah.
so you're like, my plan worked.
I don't know, but I was dehydrated. So yeah,
Oh
it
no.
was good to it was good to have that stop work criteria, right? To have people see you obviously like probably, hey, you know, you're probably done for the day before you pass out. So um yeah. So that was I mean it's kind of funny. I thought it was funny seeing my sweat imprint, but hey.
Well, that's funny because I was going to ask if you ever had any tragedies while wearing a uniform. So,
Um
perfect.
yeah, I've had that one. This is also kind of safety related. It was winter, super cold Iowa. One of my first outage experiences at the facility, we lost power and all of the electrical heat tracing, making sure pipes are heated up so they didn't freeze. That system failed. So we had these big cooling tower water lines freeze, like massive. I think like 8 inches. Cooling tower lines freeze, and we're all out there with steam hoses trying to get stuff thawed out. We get one of these elbows thawed out, and there's a drain valve at the bottom that we're trying to open so that we can empty out a lot of this liquid to the ground. So, you know, it doesn't have the potential to freeze again, right? So I go out there, early engineer experience. I go out there without my ice cleats, and that drain valve is frozen. So we're having in order to get the valve out, we're gonna have to like find a way to force the valve handle open. So I take a big pipe wrench and I'm trying to force this valve handle open. I end up shearing off the valve. Like the valve shears off. So instead of having the ability to control how much water comes out with the handle, now all that water in that cooling tower line is coming straight at us. So it drops. I get splashed. I fall all the way back, and because I don't have my ice cleats, I slip and land on my back.
Oh no.
Yeah, yeah. And then I get up, my boss sees me. And then on my way to go walk to him, I fall again. They sent me in the office and didn't let me do anything else the entire outage.
Well, at least it sounds like everyone you've worked for is very safety minded, which is really great to hear.
Yeah.
Really great to learn. And also, that last one reminds me of like it could be in an episode of Landman. Well, this has been so fantastic. Was there anything else that you wanted to add, especially as a key takeaway for those coming right behind you in the workforce, even if they're not necessarily, Gen Alpha, just peers? If somebody were to join your organization or to work alongside you or anything else you want to add.
I mean, I kind of already said it a lot. Work is going to be work, right? It's not always going to be easy or fun. That's why it's work. I think the biggest thing that I try to do with my group that I work with right now is try to keep it light when we can. Try to build relationships where you don't have to hate everything. That it's a lot easier to come to work when, you know, you enjoy talking to some of your coworkers or enjoy being around some of your coworkers. We go on Friday lunches. We try to schedule basketball games. Like this is outside of the corporation doing this. This is just us as a group of employees. HR isn't telling us, "Hey, we're scheduling like a volleyball game." This is just a group of us just
Mhm.
doing this. I think it's where you can do that type of stuff. It makes the workplace more bearable if you can. Yeah.
That's awesome. So when you're not at work, what do you do to decompress? How do you spend your time?
I go to the gym. We're trying to go to the gym more. Uh, More so for like stress regulation because some people have told me I'm a high energy person. I also have two kittens. They were dropped off at the workplace, and I took them home. So that takes some time. Trying to get into reading more if I can. I feel like the joy of reading was taken away from me during my college years because you had to read so much, you know, technical information. That coming out of college, it's like, man, I used to read for fun, you know. So that's something that I'm looking at doing. And then I write some poetry too, um, every once in a while. It's not very good, but I enjoy it. I volunteer at the Northwest Georgia Humane Society, which actually needs more volunteers and some donations as well. Both the cat and the doggo side. There's some really cute cats there. if you want to volunteer and then play with some cats, it's a great place to do it.
That's excellent. Well, this is great. Well, I really appreciate you coming on here and sharing about your work experience. And it's been a fantastic time. I hope that you feel the same. And to our listeners, I hope you join us next time. I appreciate your time. Till next time.